This is what it means to be truly monogamy oriented, right? To be monogamy oriented isn't about being someone who only has sex with one person in your lifetime, right? That's not what it means. And I have my own point of view on it. Some people would disagree with this, but I'm gonna tell you what it is, because the truth is this, right? A lot of people push the narrative that monogamy is unnatural. That is not true. It is true, but it's not. And I'm gonna say why, because they use that as an argument to try to push narratives around polyamory to make promiscuity acceptable. Promiscuity is acceptable. Polyamory is acceptable. But to push it as the only natural way of dating is not true, because there is no natural way of two people interacting. No matter what it is, in order to make that something that has the ability to be sustainable, is going to take some type of forethought, some type of work, some type of concession on one or both sides. It's not natural, because just as natural as monogamy is, just as natural as it is to want to sleep with multiple people, it's also just as natural to experience jealousy. It's also just as natural to mate guard, to mate poach, right? It's also just as natural to want to establish a life with an individual. All of these things are natural. And as human beings, men and women, we have conflicting biological imperatives. And because we have conflicting biological imperatives, we have to choose on our own basis of priorities what's most important to us and what type of lifestyle we want to live, and what type of lifestyle we live is best going to lead towards the outcome that we desire. So if your desire for multiple people outweighs your desire to have jealousy, or outweighs your natural inclination towards jealousy, which is just as natural, that shit's seen in the animal kingdom, then you may be more geared towards polyamory, right? So I'm going to explain more so what being monogamy oriented is before I get off topic with this particular video. Being monogamy oriented basically means that when you are having sex with an individual, that you start losing your desire to sleep with other people, that when you have sex with somebody, it strengthens the bond and connection to that individual in a way that lessens your desire to sleep with others, right? That's what it means. That does not mean that you're never going to encounter a person who you're sexually attracted to. It does not mean that you're not going to find people attractive. It does not mean that you're never going to have sex with somebody else. What being monogamy oriented is, it's the relationship to sex that you have. If you're inclined to not feel the need to be on the hunt for a new partner once you are regularly having sex with an individual, then you are somewhat monogamy. You're somewhat inclined towards monogamy. If the emotional connection and the sexual connection is something that blends for you in a way that strengthens the bond that you have to an individual, then you are more so monogamy oriented. Like for some people, if they're sleeping with one person, they're enjoying that. They're having a strong sexual connection. The sexual connection blends with the emotional connection. And from that place, they feel bonded and connected to the person, which would be what a lot of people consider pair bonding. Pair bonding isn't about your number of partners. Pair bonding is more so about that mix between sex and emotions that causes you to cling to an individual. Not necessarily be clingy, but causes you to feel bonded, connected, and want to be around them, and to want to have sex with them on a regular basis, or at least a primary basis, right? If realized chemistry can get to a place where it's greater than your curiosity for new people, then you're somewhat monogamy oriented, right? See, I would consider myself ambiamorous, right? I can deal with multiple women, but my desire to deal with multiple women comes from a logical point of view. I don't need a lot of variety in my life as far as women, because my sex game has a lot of variety in it by itself. But I logically understand that when a woman isn't at a certain place with you, then if you deal with just her and you build a sexual connection with that woman, and I'm dealing with her for an extended, for a period of time, you never know exactly how long that'll last. So for me, having a rotation is more so about emotional discipline, not spending too much time with a new woman, and not putting myself in the vulnerable position of giving somebody monogamy when they haven't shown themselves worthy of that, through meeting the quality, quantity, variety, and intensity of my sex drive over an extended period of time, right, with consistency. But do I just need a variety of sex partners? I like it from time to time, but it's not really necessarily how I'm oriented. Because I know for me personally, like, they got something called one-itis. They got something called alpha widowhood. Like alpha widowhood, these are things that monogamy-oriented people experience. You have the non-stick principle. The non-stick principle is something that a woman will experience if she's monogamy-oriented, right? Like, for a monogamy-oriented woman, if she's having sex with one guy, some good dick, she's getting good dick and guidance. She's sexually attracted to the guy. She's experiencing a high level of pleasure. And she's attached to the guy, and somewhat attached because of sex. Not the only reason, but that plays a big part in it. If she then fucks another guy and then she loses interest in the previous guy, that means that woman is monogamy-oriented. I know this is a different type of understanding than what people are used to. You could be monogamy-oriented in monkey branch, right? Real shit. If you're not monogamy-oriented, then you can fuck one person, have good sex, and you can add another person into the mix and fuck with multiple people at the same time, and it's not going to take away from it, because you're in a position and in a psychology and a mindset to where the more the merrier, right? Understand it. So if having better sex with somebody else causes you to lose interest in the previous partner, or having sex and emotions mixed with the next person causes you to lose interest in the previous partner, then you're somewhat monogamy oriented. It means that you can only have that sex and emotions mixed with one person at a time. Now, if you can be in love with multiple people at a time, or you can regularly have sex with multiple people, experience a high level of pleasure, and maintain both of those relationships or multiple relationships at once, then you may be more so geared towards ambyamory or polyamory. And what ambyamory means is that you're fluid between polyamory and monogamy, right? It's interesting. I don't think I've heard a word from monoamory or some shit like that. I don't think I've ever heard that word before. Another thing is this. A lot of these things are based on the connection between sex and emotions, the sex and attachment. A person can be geared towards monogamy on an emotional level, but be polyamorous on a sexual level, right? A person can be geared towards monogamy on a sexual level, but polyamorous on an emotional level. And I will make a distinction, and I do believe there's a delineation between platonic love that you feel for family and friends versus romantic love that often may denote a certain level of strong emotions and connections and attraction that draws you to an individual on a romantic level as well as on a sexual level. Like, romantic love is different from platonic love because sex is involved. You don't want to fuck your mom. You don't want to fuck your sister. Hope not. You don't want to fuck your kids. Definitely hope not, right? In those scenarios, because sex isn't involved, right, with those individuals, it's a different type of thing, because the natural inclination towards mate guarding, the fact that you're attached through blood, or the fact that your life isn't enmeshed with that individual, it gives you a certain freedom for them to come and go as they please. Because there is no physical need that they're meeting for you on a regular basis. There is no attachment to a physical pleasure that you need on a regular basis in most instances. See, I really want to clear this up because a lot of people talk about monogamy as if it's something that's just unnatural. A lot of people who view monogamy as 100% unnatural are people who have overstimulated themselves with variety to the point where the idea of dealing with one individual is something so far outside of the realm of what they feel is natural that they have to force themselves to do it through logic. But really, a lot of what comes with natural monogamy is having the ability to meet the sex drive of an individual and have them meet your sex drive, right? As far as the quality, quantity, consistency. I mean, consistency goes with quantity, but quality, quantity, intensity, and variety. And then for emotions to mix with that in a way where validation is involved and you attach to them emotionally, not only, but to a certain extent because of the pleasure that you're experiencing with them. And when you experience that with an individual, sometimes you don't feel comfortable wanting to have that experience with multiple people. Sometimes when you have that experience with somebody, you say, I trust them to feel this way about them, so that this is the only person who I really want to experience this type of pleasure, this type of emotion, this type of desiring their validation for. So I don't want to have that with somebody else at this moment. You know, I think people need to understand one-itis and alpha widowhood. Those are two concepts that show that being oriented towards monogamy is a real thing. You know, sometimes a man, I've dealt with one-itis myself, because while I am a man who's had rotations of like 5 to 7 women, I really don't like to have more than 2 to 3 these days. And that's by necessity. Like if I just got one woman, she's consistent, we fucking with each other, we're in near enough proximity, we're building, we're always setting sexual goals and moving forward, then 1 to 2 women really isn't a problem for me. But I also understand that sometimes when you're fucking with only one woman, things can go left, right? Especially if you're doing that too soon, you're seeing her too often, especially if you're not jumping into a relationship fast enough for her liking. Or she might start feeling entitled to monogamy, right? But one-itis is something that often happens when a man can be talking to a woman. This woman is special to him. You know, he's getting emotionally stimulated, mentally stimulated, sexually stimulated, sometimes not even sexually stimulated. And when he's in that state of mind, he's not interested in talking to any other woman. It's possible to only have eyes for one woman. I've done it before. And when you're in that frame of mind, a man can be dealing with one woman, and then when they break up, he doesn't want to talk to anybody else for months, weeks, maybe years. And he has to force himself to go out and find new women to talk to deal with, to try to get this other woman off of his mind. One-itis is something that a man experiences where, for this particular woman, he is experiencing monogamy-oriented tendencies, right? Alpha widowhood. A woman can deal with the man to where sex mixes with emotions and validation. You know, the way that this man makes her feel sexually turns her off to the idea of sleeping with anyone else, right? Not to say she'll never be attracted to anybody else, but there's some women who, once they're really feeling a guy, they lose the ability to be attracted to damn near anybody else they come across, except for rare exceptions, right? Now, like I said in Brody's Law, some always will, some never will. Most people are somewhere in between, right? So don't expect someone else or expect yourself to be in that particular frame of mind and in that particular thought process, because that could set you up for failure. You can play with plausible deniability. You can shame yourself for being sexually attracted to another person, right? There's a lot of things that can go along with that. You can put yourself in scenarios to where if you are in a monogamous relationship, that it's not going to work. Now, what I'll say is like this. You have to know your propensities. You have to know your tendencies. You have to know yourself, right? So if you know that being monogamy oriented isn't your thing, I just don't agree with leading into a relationship saying that you want monogamy to start off with, right? Because monogamy is something that can occur somewhat naturally. And just because you're attracted to another person doesn't mean you have to act on it. Just because you sexually desire an individual doesn't mean you have to do it. We have to understand what psychological reactance is, and understanding that concentration oftentimes is a powerful thing. And when people don't understand that concentrating your sexual energy is a powerful thing, then oftentimes an individual can get into a place of psychological reactance where they feel like not having the freedom to sleep with multiple people is something that impedes on their freedom, impedes on their autonomy, impedes on their agency, and then causes them to feel trapped, claustrophobic, and closed in. Now, you want, if monogamy is something you want, you need to avoid dealing with somebody who feels that particular way. Real shit. But you have to observe that in their behaviors, the attitudes, the things that they say. But that feeling of being with an individual, you can be monogamous with somebody without that even being a rule, right? Like, I've been in several monopoly situations with women, right? Where just being a fuck buddy or friends with benefits, and a woman would be like, okay, you're the designated dick, right? I'm pleased by you. You meet my sexual needs. And they would have the freedom to go fuck who they wanted to, but they would choose to just fuck with me for that period of time. Now, that may not be necessarily the longest thing. It might be, a couple months, sometimes years, right? But something to understand is not everybody's natural inclination or their desires or their choices is going to be that they want to fuck everybody at one time, right? That's not what everybody wants to do. I've been in several scenarios where I would be the poly person because I don't lead with monogamy. So I don't tell a woman, oh, I'm only fucking with you. No, yes, there are other women. I'm honest about that, right? But when I do that, sometimes a woman will just fuck with me. And typically, because I know that monogamy is a goal for me in the long run, or at least dealing with somebody to where we can have a foundation of having a strong enough sexual connection, emotional connection, mental connection, and social connection to where, if necessary, we could have periods of time where we are just dealing with each other. Like, let's say my woman is pregnant. You know what I mean? Let's say, we're going through issues in our relationship. Let's say we're focused on some spiritual shit at the time, that we might just deal with just each other for that period of time if it's necessary, instead of feeling like you're dealing with somebody who always has to dip out. So for me, I'm not even going to really, I don't want to feel like I'm forcing a woman to be monogamous with me. So if a woman doesn't get to that place of dealing with just me, just naturally through the course of interacting with me and seeing that I'm consistent, meeting her sex drive, and that I'm taking her places sexually that she hasn't been, and that we're really enjoying that dynamic, because I'm consistent. That's why I like to only deal with 2 to 3 women. I don't like to deal with more women than whose sex drives I can handle, right? So when I first meet a woman, I'm not expecting her to be monogamous. I don't expect that. I like open communication. Yes, tell me you're dealing with other guys. It actually makes it easier for me to handle it, right? Because you have to understand that to a certain extent, sexual jealousy is a natural thing. But the earlier you can process it before emotions get involved, the easier it is to handle. And then you can just deal with the individual and build up. And for me, I don't need to deal with multiple women. So if I'm dealing with a woman, she deal with multiple guys, or she dealing with some other guy or some other guys, cool, right? Of course, protect myself, shit like that. She get tested, shit, cool, right? Now, if I'm dealing with her for an extended period of time and she never stops dealing with other guys, or she never gets to the place where she's cool with just fucking with me, then I'm not going to elevate her above the position of fuck buddy or friends with benefits. Now, if she were to add enough value to my life, knew how to still prioritize dealing with me sexually, still knew how to meet my needs, still desired me sexually, and she added value, then I might think about something polyamorous. But that's not the way I'm trying to go into my marriage, right? It's not the way I'm trying to go into a relationship that's, committed, right? That's just me personally, because for me, I am emotionally monogamous for the most part. I can like multiple women at a time, but for me, only really one woman is going to have a certain level of access to me emotionally at a time, right? I'm not saying it's impossible. I probably could, but that's just not what I've experienced so far. And it's not really the way I want to move. Now, could I build upon that foundation? I could. Could I have multiple women, multiple girls and shit like that and build a connection with both of them? Yeah, I could. Right? But I know that so far how I am, and I'm not looking to purposefully try to change that. I like having that connection with one woman at a time, and then just having other women that I deal with. So for me, it would just more so be a matter of, all right, cool. I'm dealing with, you got your main woman. Then you got other women you might deal with. She knows about it. Everybody knows what's going on. Right? If a girl doesn't get to the point where she leaves the other guys alone naturally, and then decides she prefers and is good just sleeping with me, then she's not going to get elevated above that position. The main girl is already in that position. Right? If she changes her mind on that, then you kind of got to have to go back to the drawing board. But first you would have to see how she reacts to that, because sometimes you are dealing with a woman who's somewhat monogamy oriented. If she's monogamy oriented, then sleep with other people may be something that changes the way she views or feels about things. So you would have to teach her how to separate sex from emotions if she doesn't know already. And then you'll just have to see how she deals with that and then treat that as it goes. So I'm just giving some examples to articulate what it truly means to be monogamy oriented. It's not about saying that you only fuck one person in your lifetime, or that you only have sex if you in a relationship, right? Or that you only have sex if you married, right? Or that you that you're not a sexual person. That's not true. It's just basically about your relationship to sex. It's about how you mix sex with emotions, your propensity to be able to separate those things and deal with multiple people, or your ability to mix those things together and deal with multiple people without affecting your relationship dynamic. Right? So I've trained myself to be able to do that without it affecting my relationship dynamic. But it took time for me to learn that. I had to develop those skills, and I developed those skills while single. Right? Because even that is not natural. A lot of men will have one-itis. A lot of women will have alpha widowhood. Some women, they'll fuck a guy and he'll make her feel in such a way that she won't want nobody else to touch her for years. Some people, their partner dies or they get divorced and then they stay single and don't have sex for the rest of their life. I know people who have been in that situation. So the idea that only polyamory is natural is not true. A lot of people just push that narrative because they're already overstimulated with variety. They're already used to and went through a process when they were younger of learning to separate sex from emotions, and they maybe never got to a place where they could mix it again. So this is what it truly means to be monogamy oriented. It's Coach Brody. I'm out.